If you are helping care for someone with dementia, you know this moment. You know it all too well. It's that excruciating scenario where your loved one insists with just total certainty, I just ate, even though the food you made is sitting right there, untouched. And you try to use logic, you point to the plate, and immediately everything just goes sideways. They get defensive, frustrated, and a simple meal turns into an argument.
It is utterly exhausting for the caregiver, and frankly, it's absolutely terrifying for the person experiencing it.
Yeah.
And the foundational mistake most people make is treating that refusal as defiance.
Right, like they're being stubborn.
Exactly. It's not. It is a genuine cognitive barrier that makes that false memory feel completely real. We're trying to reason with a brain that has lost its ability to verify facts.
But that is exactly why we're taking this deep dive today. Our mission isn't just to validate that frustration, but to fundamentally change how you approach this challenge. We're going to unpack the neurological reality beneath the surface and introduce you to a really powerful behavioral solution called Errorless Teaching.
It comes directly from behavioral gerontology, and it's designed specifically to restore calm, protect dignity, and just bypass that whole painful loop before it even starts.
So where do we begin?
Well, to succeed with this, we first need empathy based on science. We have to understand why they're so certain. When they insist they ate, they're not lying. They're not trying to manipulate you. This certainty is a result of specific neurological shifts, mostly in the temporal lobe where memory is time-stamped and filed.
Okay. And the sources break this down beautifully into 4 specific cognitive barriers. These really explain why that memory of having eaten feels so reliable to them, even when it's just factually wrong.
It does. So the first one is the loss of time awareness.
The brain's clock.
Yeah, the brain has lost its clock function.
Yeah.
It can't accurately timestamp events. So if a meal is supposed to happen at 8 a.m., the idea of it might register, but the event itself could feel like it happened 20 minutes ago or yesterday. That ability to track time is simply gone.
So if they feel even slightly not hungry, they just rely on that feeling. And because the brain can't file the memory properly, that feeling of being satisfied just hangs around.
Precisely. The feeling is what matters. And this leads right to the second issue, memory substitution.
The brain filling in the blanks.
The brain despises a blank space. When the actual memory of an event fails, the brain just defaults to filling in the missing data with the most likely routine.
So if they've eaten breakfast at 8 a.m. for 60 years, the brain just concludes the routine was completed, therefore I have eaten.
It's like it's generating a protective false confidence.
Right.
And that certainty feels much, much safer than the terror of realizing their memory is failing them.
Of course.
The third barrier is emotional anchoring. Since factual recall is unreliable, the person starts to rely almost entirely on their current emotional state to anchor their reality.
So if they feel okay, not hungry, not upset,
The logical conclusion they draw is, I must have already eaten.
that is such a vital piece of the puzzle. We are demanding factual evidence, and they are using emotional and routine evidence. Which brings us to the fourth barrier, reduced interoception.
Yes, interoception is your internal sense that detects bodily states, hunger, thirst, that kind of thing. In dementia, those internal body cues weaken. They get distorted. The body just isn't sending clear, demanding signals for food or water. So even if they haven't eaten in hours, the physical drive might not be there to override that memory substitution.
Okay, that gives us incredible insight into their experience. They genuinely believe the routine is complete. Now, let's talk about the common response, the one that guarantees friction, introducing logic. You try to fix it by saying, but you didn't eat, look, your plate is untouched. What happens then?
The sources are absolutely clear on this. Confronting them with evidence, what we call correction, it triggers an immediate and intensely negative response.
Because you're asking for something they can't give.
You are. You're demanding they access a memory they literally cannot retrieve. And that action floods them with defensiveness, confusion, panic, and just deep, deep shame.
It's the cognitive equivalent of demanding they perform calculus when they only know addition. It creates a fight or flight response.
Exactly. And here is the core behavioral insight you have to understand. The dementia brain does not update based on logic.
Certainty feels safer.
Certainty feels safer than admitting a mistake. If you show them the untouched plate as proof, the distress just increases, and they will automatically double down on that false memory to protect themselves. You've just created a crisis.
So the goal is to bypass the argument entirely. We're not trying to fix the memory. We're trying to manage the behavior. This is where errorless teaching, or ET, comes in. How is it formally defined?
Errorless teaching is a strategic process. It's designed to guide a person toward a desired behavior by preventing them from making mistakes in the first place. So the goal is to set up the environment, the prompts, and the routine so that the desired action, in this case taking a bite, is the natural, automatic, and easiest choice.
So it's not just avoiding correction, it's proactively removing the opportunity for the error, for that initial refusal to even happen.
Precisely. ET achieves several things instantly. It preserves their dignity, it reduces the need for you to correct them, and most importantly, it lowers those refusal behaviors. Instead of waiting for the person to refuse and then trying to fix it, you're setting the stage so the refusal never occurs.
Okay, let's transition to the practical application. For you listening, this is the how-to. How do we structure this interaction using ET to overcome that mealtime refusal? There are 5 core steps.
Right. And the initial step has to be about de-escalation, because if they're already saying, "I ate," you can't just push forward.
So what's step 1?
Step 1, validate their experience. The language here is key. You have to separate the feeling from the fact.
Okay.
You use a phrase like, "I hear you. It totally feels like you just ate." You're validating the feeling of certainty, not the inaccurate fact. That simple acknowledgement just instantly lowers the defensive wall. You're on their team.
I can see how that changes the whole dynamic. You're taking the fight out of it. But what if they keep arguing?
That's where step 2, shift focus to comfort, not food, comes in. If you focus on consumption, you just bring back that pressure and that memory refusal.
Well, instead of, "You need to eat this soup."
You change the goal. Try, "Let's get you something warm to sip," or "How about we take a little break together at the table before our walk?"
So the goal isn't eating. The goal is a shared, low-demand comfort activity. What kind of warm sips work best here? Are we talking tea or something else?
Anything low effort. A small cup of weak, sweet tea, a little warm bone broth, even warm juice. The heat engages the senses, and the goal is just to start that oral motor process in a relaxed way. You're removing the pressure of eating a full meal.
Pressure equals shutdown. Got it. Now, how do we get them from the couch to the table without prompting another refusal?
That is step 3. Offer a low-demand, easy yes. Errorless teaching is all about momentum. You don't ask a big question like, "Are you ready for lunch now?"
Right.
Instead, you ask a simple favor. "Come sit with me for a minute while I read this." Or, my favorite, "Can you help me taste test this new flavor I bought?" A small, easy first action.
Okay, so they're now at the table, comfortable, maybe sipping something warm. They haven't had to recall whether or not they ate. How do we introduce the actual calories?
That brings us to step 4. Serve a momentum bite first. You don't bring out the complicated, full plate. You introduce a small portion of something soft, warm, predictable.
Like what?
The sources strongly suggest pudding, applesauce, soup, or yogurt. These re-engage the appetite circuits without triggering the cognitive refusal that happens with unfamiliar or high-effort foods.
So we are creating a behavioral bridge back to eating, using foods that are comforting and easy.
Exactly. Once they have a couple of bites of something warm and predictable, the body's sensory system often kicks in, and the true hunger signals might start to rise above that diminished interoception.
And the final step is about making sure we don't have to do this every single day.
Step 5. Create a predictable routine. This is the long game. You must strive for extreme consistency. Meals in the same chair, same placemat, same times, same gentle cues. Predictability reduces the cognitive misfires that cause that memory gap in the first place.
This highlights the core behavioral insight here. When explicit memory falters, consistency becomes the memory.
That's it.
The body learns, when I sit in this chair at 12 p.m., I get something warm. That routine is stored in a deeper, more automatic part of the brain. It replaces the need for them to recall if they ate.
You're setting up external environmental memory guides instead of relying on their compromised internal system.
Okay, let's get into the necessary real-world nuance, because this is where theory meets high emotion. What happens if you try one of these steps and they react with anger, or they say, "Stop trying to feed me"?
That phrase, "stop trying to feed me," translates almost universally to "I feel overwhelmed, pressured, or confused."
Okay.
Your immediate response should be to back off for 10 to 15 minutes. Literally remove the food, redirect the activity, and then come back with only a low-pressure item, like a drink or that sweet starter. Any perceived pressure will cause a total shutdown.
And if the refusal escalates to real anger, when they start pushing the plate away?
If they get angry, the issue is almost always timing or underlying anxiety, not your intention. You'd reset their baseline entirely. Before you reapproach with food, try offering something completely sensory and unrelated. A warm towel for their hands, a quick hand massage with lotion, put on some soft music. Just calm their entire nervous system first.
We discussed this earlier, but we need to reinforce it because the impulse is so strong. We never show them the untouched plate as proof that they are wrong.
Never. The moment you introduce proof, you are destroying trust. Errorless teaching is a promise to them that you will not embarrass them or make them feel defective. Evidence only increases distress.
So you protect the trust by moving forward with comfort.
Exactly. Not by forcing them to confront their cognitive gap.
How can a caregiver tell the difference between a genuine lack of desire to eat, like maybe they're sick or just not hungry, versus a pure memory-based refusal?
This requires really keen observation. You have to watch their behavior, not just listen to their words. If they're refusing purely based on memory, they might say, "I ate already," but they won't show a strong physical aversion. But if you see them fidgeting, pushing the food away aggressively, keeping their lips tightly closed, turning their head, that often points to sensory or motor discomfort.
So it might be a problem with swallowing or the texture or the temperature?
It could be. That physical reaction suggests a physiological barrier, not just a memory one.
So behavior is communication, whether that communication is memory-based, emotional, or sensory.
Absolutely. And remember the power of those simple visual cues we talked about. A placemat already set, a specific spoon in their dominant hand. These cues bypass memory and act as direct guides for their behavior, making the task feel automatic.
One final point on consistency that I found really sobering in the sources, the reminder that one argument from a visiting family member can undo days, sometimes weeks, of trust building.
Oh, that consistency among all caregivers is non-negotiable. If you spend 3 days building this low-stress environment and then a family member comes in and says, "No, Dad, you're mistaken, you didn't eat," you destroy the baseline. You trigger that shame response all over again. The entire care team has to be on the same page.
This entire deep dive has been about understanding that these frustrating refusals are almost always rooted in memory failure, and that the best path forward is through the behavioral tools of errorless teaching, leading with comfort, seeking momentum, and removing the shame of cognitive error.
And while these behavioral methods are incredibly effective for memory-based refusal, we have to end with a crucial warning sign. This is what shifts the focus from behavior to medicine.
Okay.
If the refusal suddenly changes, you see a total rejection of all food and drink, or if you observe rapid, unexplained weight loss, constant coughing, signs of dehydration, or a sudden change in appetite that coincides with a new medication, those are red flags.
And that's when you call the doctor.
Immediately. That ceases to be solely a behavioral issue and requires professional medical consultation to rule out dysphagia, an infection, or medication side effects.
The ultimate goal, then, is not just ensuring nutrition, but protecting the relationship, the trust, and the dignity of the person you are caring for.
Exactly. And I encourage you, the listener, to consider this final provocative thought. Errorless teaching is fundamentally about removing opportunities for error and shame. We've focused on mealtime, but how can you apply this principle of setting up the environment so the right choice is the only choice to other stressful activities?
Like dressing or bathing.
Or even just finding the remote control. By extending this routine as memory philosophy beyond the kitchen, you can reduce frustration and increase calm in nearly every single aspect of daily life. This technique isn't just about eating, it's about redesigning their world to maximize safety and peace.